If you're a recovering people pleaser who still feels guilty about setting boundaries, stick around. This one's for you. And if you don't have 10 minutes to spare, save it and come back later. I guarantee you, you're gonna feel sane. Recovering from people pleasing absolutely fucking sucks. You know, everyone talks about, oh, I'm a recovering people pleaser, or I'm learning not to people please. As women, we're taught to people please from a very young age. We're taught to to share and to be cognizant of other people's emotions and not to be too loud and not to talk and essentially to people please. And what is people pleasing at its core? It's self-abandonment. Why is it self-abandonment? Because when you put other people's needs above your own, you get left by the wayside. So this could look like someone crosses your boundaries, makes you feel bad, hurts your feelings, does something that doesn't make you feel safe. And instead of telling them like, hey, that you don't say anything because you know if you say something, you're going to make them feel bad, or you're going to put them on the spot and make them feel uncomfortable, and assuming they care, which that's the biggest issue with people pleasers. Is I would say most people pleasers, including myself, we're very in tune with other people's emotions. We're very empathetic, and so we're very forgiving to flaws. And honestly, if you've been doing the work and working on yourself and understanding that people are complicated, it's not black and white. There can be someone who does cross your boundaries, but they're still a good person deep down. And it gets frustrating. And I think the thing that sucks the most is when you're actually a recovering people pleaser and you're starting to stand up for yourself and you're starting to be vocal and you're telling people when they do cross your boundaries, hey, that didn't make me feel good, that didn't make me feel safe, that was unacceptable, that I don't like that, please don't do it again. And then it's great because you've stood up for yourself and you've put that boundary in place, but there's an immediate sense of guilt that tends to follow. And I've started noticing this more and more as I am more vocal about what I will accept in my life, what I won't accept, what makes me comfortable, what makes me uncomfortable. Feeling into my body and knowing like, I didn't like that. I didn't like how this person talked to me. I didn't like how they treated me, touched me, did something to me. And vocalizing it, I thought was going to be the hardest part about stopping the people pleasing. But what's actually the hardest part is sitting in the discomfort of knowing that you've triggered that other person. Because when you're people pleasing, you're basically trying to keep the peace and not triggering other people. But boundaries trigger people. And people act a certain way when you trigger them. Because no one wants to own up that they've hurt you. Some people don't care, honestly. I will say, people don't like being told that they've done something wrong. And when someone crosses your boundaries, you're essentially telling them, you wronged me. And then it's up to you to sit in that discomfort and be like, yeah, I just triggered the fuck out of this person because I held my ground or because I was honest about how I was feeling. And now you have to sit in the discomfort, which is hard for an empathetic person or an empathic person to sit in the discomfort of knowing you just caused discomfort to someone else. And it's like a vicious cycle. So even as you're learning to not self-abandon, it still feels difficult. Because you care. And then it's like, well, why the fuck do you care about someone who's crossed your boundaries? Like, because we're all complex and we all have our own issues. And typically someone who's a people pleaser, as I said before, they care about how the other person's feeling in the first place. Before we started on this, I don't want to be a people pleaser anymore journey. So things start to hurt when you realize you have to shift that relationship and they don't see. That's the hardest part, is like, you see what's going on and they don't see it. They don't see that they did anything wrong. They don't see why you're so sensitive. And frankly, they probably don't care. They didn't apologize, instead tried to intellectualize well, maybe you're too sensitive. It's not that big a deal. I respect you. So how can what I did be disrespectful? Maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe, things like that. Acknowledging like, yeah, this person just doesn't understand me. And that's a part of acknowledging that unfortunately you can't make everyone happy, including yourself. If you stay in situations where you feel uncomfortable, unsafe, unseen, and the people pleaser wants to, and I wanted to, continue to try to explain why I felt this way and not make them the bad guy, but to tell them like, look, I understand why you're treating me this way or why you think this way, but that's just not the reality for me. We can have different realities and they can both be right for us. The discomfort, there's discomfort in people pleasing because you are abandoning yourself. But there's also discomfort in putting up boundaries and hurting the other person by doing that. And unfortunately in this world, most people would rather get defensive and defend their stance or defend why they're not the bad guy versus owning up to when they did something wrong or owning up to hurting your feelings. Because at the end of the day, crossing boundaries doesn't even mean someone technically maliciously tried to hurt you. It could just be a difference in values where they believe one thing, you believe another. The fact that you have different values means that this person can and will cross your boundaries when they try to enforce their idea of what they think is right or funny or whatever onto you, and that can cross your boundaries. And it doesn't mean they're a bad person, it just means they're a little out of touch, maybe a bit hard-headed, and I've crossed people's boundaries too. It's happened. I've made my own best friends cry at one point or another unintentionally. But you know what I did? I said, oh my God, I'm fucking sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I won't do it again. That was messed up. Now that I think about it through your eyes, I own up to the fact that I've hurt people unintentionally. And it did make me feel bad. It did make me feel a little defensive at first. But the point is yeah, it made me uncomfortable. But as a person who cares about my friends, I'm gonna own up to yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see it that way, but I see what you're saying. I won't do it again. I didn't know. Thanks for letting me know. And some people just aren't gonna be like that. Most people aren't gonna be like that. And obviously it takes a special kind of person who's done a lot of inner work to understand that people are different and complicated, and people have different traumas, and people have different sensitivities. And because at the end of the day, we're not always going to agree. But if we can both understand, my words hurt you, then I don't want you to feel that way. If you're really my friend, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. And if I care about you, I'm going to respect your values, your boundaries. Understand that this is why you can't people please. Because the more honest and upfront you are, the more you're going to realize if a person is for you or is not for you. Whether it's romantic, friendship, even family members. Because yes, it's going to suck when you start putting up boundaries. But part of the thing I'm learning is to just sit with it. Just let it wash over you. Feel it. Feel what it feels like to be misunderstood. Feel what it feels like to disappoint someone. Feel what it feels like to know that you've hurt someone else by protecting yourself, protecting your feelings, protecting your peace, and sit with it and accept that this isn't a perfect world. And this isn't a world where everyone's going to understand where you're coming from. And this is not a world where people are going to own up to the hurt that they've caused, big or little. So what's my best advice for this kind of scenario? Acceptance. You got to accept it. You got to stop fighting reality, accept it is what it is, and move on. And you can mourn the loss of a friendship. You can mourn what a friendship used to be and accept what it is now. And just learn that that self-abandonment is much worse than losing people because you've stood up for yourself. I know that for a fact. And so moving on and really thinking about just what's best for me, because what's best for you will bring the right people to you. And people pleasing, it's got to go. And shifting that whole dynamic is like doing a 180 and taking a new path in life. So feel bad, but don't let it change your decision. You can feel guilty and you can feel sad, but don't let it change your better path of not abandoning yourself anymore. and let it help shape your future. I love you. You got this. I'm Danielle Ray, the godmother of women. I help women achieve a life that feels truly wealthy through health, both physical and mental. And if this message about people pleasing resonated with you, check out the link in my bio. I've got a free guide on letting that shit go.